144 years. A construction project that began before reinforced concrete even existed has finally reached its peak, rising 172 meters into the sky, taller than the world's greatest cathedrals. But this is not a story about architecture. This is a story about a system most people never see. A project built without bank loans, without government funding, and at one point nearly erased from history. So what kept it alive through wars, economic collapse, and near destruction? And why could it only be finished now? Because the truth is this structure was never built with stone alone. It was built by something far more powerful, a constant flow of global money, and the precision of 21st century technology working together to finish what one man never could. 144 years. That is how long it took to complete the Sagrada Familia, a project that began in 1882, before the Eiffel Tower was even built, before skyscrapers reshaped city skylines, before modern construction methods existed. And yet, it continued, slowly rising through generations, until in 2026, it finally reached its highest point. But the real question is not why it took so long, because history is full of delayed projects, wars, crises, and funding problems. The real question is why now? Why, after more than a century of uncertainty, destruction, and near collapse, did this project suddenly become finishable? Because for decades it was considered impossible. The original plans were partially destroyed. The design was too complex for traditional construction, and the world around it kept changing faster than the building itself. Entire generations worked on it without ever seeing the end. Some doubted it would ever be completed at all. So something changed. Something shifted in the system that made the impossible suddenly achievable. And understanding that shift is the key to understanding why this 19th century vision could only be completed in the 21st century. Unlike any other mega project in the world, the Sagrada Familia does not run on debt. It does not rely on government budgets, and it does not have a corporate backer. Instead, the entire system depends on a single source: visitors. Every ticket sold becomes construction capital. Every tourist becomes part of the funding engine. In 2024 alone, nearly 4.9 million people walked through its doors, generating about $44.7 million. And around 15% of those visitors came from the United States, which means a significant portion of the funding is tied directly to global travel patterns, not local policy. This creates a fragile but powerful system, because if the flow of visitors slows down, the money stops. And when the money stops, construction slows or even halts. This already happened during the pandemic, when global travel collapsed and work on the basilica was forced to pause. So what looks like a religious monument is actually a live economic system, constantly fed by movement, attention, and tourism. It behaves less like a building and more like a business model, one that converts global curiosity into physical progress. And this raises a deeper question. If a structure depends entirely on human movement to exist, then who is really in control of its future? The architects, or the flow of people willing to pay to see it? The first crack did not come from war or funding. It came from the design itself, because Antoni Gaudi was not building a normal church. He was designing something the 19th century simply did not have the tools to execute. The structure relies on 36 interior columns, but these are not straight pillars. Each one twists as it rises, splits into branches, and transforms its shape along the way. There are no right angles, no flat surfaces, nothing standard that builders could easily measure or replicate. Each column behaves like a living structure, distributing weight through branching forms, and some of these columns are designed to carry loads of up to 6,000 tons, which creates a level of structural complexity far beyond traditional architecture. But the real problem came next. During the Spanish Civil War, much of Gaudi's original work was destroyed. Detailed models were smashed, drawings were burned, and critical calculations were lost, leaving behind only fragments and photographs, which meant future architects were not continuing a clear plan. They were reconstructing a vision from broken pieces, trying to guess missing geometry, angles, and load paths. So the project was no longer just difficult. It became uncertain, because every decision carried the risk of being wrong. and every mistake could compromise the entire structure, turning an already impossible design into a puzzle that no one fully understood, and that uncertainty would stall progress for decades. Each column inside the structure is not a single piece. It is a system made of between 800 and 1,200 individual stone blocks, each one carved to fit with extreme precision, down to just 0.1 millimeters. And that level of accuracy is not optional, because even a small deviation of 3 millimeters at the base can turn into a misalignment of nearly half a meter at the top, which means the pieces will not connect, the load will not distribute correctly, and the entire structure could fail. This is not decorative detail, this is structural survival, and the challenge did not stop there. The Spanish Civil War destroyed critical models and plans. 12 people connected to the project lost their lives. And decades later, the COVID pandemic froze construction again when tourism collapsed, cutting off the main source of funding. So for nearly 150 years, the same problem remained unsolved. How do you build something this complex without complete information and without consistent resources? Generation after generation tried and failed to fully solve it, until a new variable entered the system, one that did not exist when the project began: modern technology. And that is where everything started to change. The real battle was never just about construction. It was a collision between the past and modern technology, because for over a century, the design was too complex to execute with traditional tools. But that started to change when new systems entered the process. Engineers began using aerodynamic simulation software originally developed for aircraft design, allowing them to reconstruct missing geometries and test whether the structure could actually stand. At the same time, advanced CNC machines with up to 7 axes replaced manual stone carving, achieving precision down to 0.1 millimeters, something human hands could never consistently deliver. This changed everything. A single stone block that once took 3 weeks to carve by a master craftsman could now be completed in just 6 hours, faster, more accurate, and perfectly repeatable. But while technology was solving one problem, another conflict was growing outside the structure. To complete the final facade as originally designed, the project would require demolishing residential buildings, displacing around 3,000 people, turning a construction project into a social and political battle. Residents pushed back, arguing for their homes and their community, while the foundation argued for completing a historic vision. This created a new kind of tension, not engineering versus gravity, but people versus progress, heritage versus daily life. And the question became unavoidable. When a project reaches this scale, who gets to decide what matters more, preserving the past or protecting the present? But this is no longer a story about a church, and the real issue is not architecture. It is about who controls the flow of money, because this entire structure survives on a system that depends on 3 forces working together: tourists who pay to enter, technology that reduces cost and speeds up construction, and globalization that keeps people moving across borders. Without any one of these, the system breaks. If visitors stop coming, funding disappears. If technology did not evolve, the design would remain impossible. If global travel slows down, the entire economic engine weakens, which means the completion of this project was never just about finishing a design. It was about aligning a global system at the right moment. And that changes how we understand the outcome, because Gaudi did not complete this building, and neither did any single architect or government. What actually finished it was something much larger, a global economic machine that turned attention into revenue, and revenue into construction. A system where millions of individual decisions, buying tickets, traveling across continents, sharing images, all combined into a single force strong enough to complete what one man started. And that raises a bigger question. If global money can finish a 19th century vision, what else can it build next? 2026 marks the symbolic finish. The moment the central tower reaches its full height and the vision becomes visible to the world. 2033 marks the structural completion, when the final major elements fall into place. And 2035 marks the true end, when every detail, every sculpture, every surface is complete. And then something unusual happens. The cranes disappear. The noise fades. But the system does not stop. Tourists continue to arrive, millions every year. And the flow of money keeps moving through the structure, turning it from a construction site into a permanent economic engine, which means the real winner is not the architect, not the builders, but the system that learned how to convert attention into revenue. Because in today's world, the places that control the movement of people control the movement of money, and the places that control money decide what gets built and what gets left behind. So if you want to understand how systems like this are shaping the future, make sure to subscribe, because money does not just build cities, it decides which ones survive.